Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. Such a pleasure to introduce you to my amazing guest here. We've got Ocean Robbins. So excited to have you. Thank you for joining us, Ocean.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be with you. I really am.
And I feel like I'm your physician and specializing. I'm talking to a community here. I feel like I'm your physician specializing in gut health and digestion. And I'm really grateful to bring you the latest and breaking news on how you can unleash nutritional power, right? We say food is medicine, and you can fight diseases like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, dementia, or even sometimes, what we call symptoms that are for diseases that are not life-threatening, but it can take over your life. And it's really not just what you eat anymore. It's they're hidden stuff, right? Pesticides, GMOs, hormones, antibiotics, the works. And so lots of untested chemicals. So that's why I'm really thrilled to interview Mr. Ocean Robbins. So for those of you who may not be familiar with his work, his father, John Ocean, walked away from the Baskin-Robbins ice cream fortune to really follow his mission in life. And how many people can say they did that? And John and Ocean have become global food and health leaders. And they're really working every day to stand up for a better world for future generations. Welcome, Ocean. I appreciate it. And, I'll tell you this, before we get right into our topic, very few people do what they dream about or what they live their mission. Tell me what it feels like to do that. And what are the challenges that you face in doing that? Because, a lot of people talk the talk, a good talk, but you're actually walking the walk. You're doing what you're saying. Tell me about that.
Well, it's wonderful for me to get to do something that I love and that really matters every day of my life. I think so many people feel like their work is draining them and sapping them of their life force. And what they really love and are passionate about is stuff they have to do on weekends or at night or on the side. And what I love is that the core of my life energy goes to something that nourishes me and fills me up, because I know the difference I'm getting to make. I know what's at stake. I know how many lives are on the line. And I love the fact that I get to make a meaningful contribution in helping people heal every day of my life. The challenge is that it can sort of take over my life because I'm so passionate and lit up about it. And, I've got 17-year-old twins. I've got a wife that I adore, and I want to take good care of my health. And so finding that balance, living into that balance is beautiful. And I've always been a really high energy kind of guy. I work sometimes 60, 70-hour weeks and love it. But finding that wholeness in life is critically important too. And we all know that we have to invest in our future every day, because, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, these don't show up out of nowhere. We actually lay the groundwork for them sometimes decades prior with the choices we make and the lives we live. And so I, like anybody, want to be taking good care of this beautiful vessel so that I can serve for a long time to come.
And I always ask, I was fascinated, by the way, folks like yourself who've really dedicated their lives. What was the spark that really made you do that? I know your dad, followed a path that probably many would not have expected him to, given the fact that, your family business has done so well. But what is it? What's the spark for you that does it? For me, I always say, I get juiced up by my kids. I have a 4-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 14-year-old. I want to be there, for their grandkids. And so, not just mine. And so what makes you, get up? Or first of all, what started this for you? I mean, what is it that you said, I'm going to do this instead of doing something else? And what continues it for?
Well, as you alluded to, my grandpa founded Baskin-Robbins Ice Cream Company, and my dad, John, grew up with an ice cream cone-shaped swimming pool in the backyard and in the freezer. And he was groomed to one day join in running the family company. But when he was in his early 20s, he was offered that chance and he said no. And he walked away from a path that was practically paved with gold and ice cream to, as we jokingly say, follow his own rocky road. And he ended up moving with my mom to a little island off the coast of Canada where they built a one-room log cabin, grew most of their own food, practiced yoga and meditation for several hours a day, and named their kid Ocean. And But I had this experience growing up where we would visit my grandparents, and my dad's dad ate the standard American diet plus a double scoop of ice cream, and not surprisingly wound up with the standard American diseases. He had serious heart disease and diabetes, and in his early 70s, his doctors told him he didn't have long to live unless he made big changes. And they gave him a copy of a book by the name of Diet for a New America, which my dad had written. My dad had become a best-selling author advocating for healthy food. And so my grandpa read the book and he changed his diet and he got profound results. He got off all his diabetes and blood pressure medications. He lost 30 pounds. His golf game improved 7 strokes, and he lived another 19 more healthy years. His brother-in-law, my dad's uncle, Bert Baskin, had died at 54 of heart disease. So we've seen in our family what can happen when we eat the standard American diet, and we've seen what can happen when we make a change. And growing up, my dad and I were marathon runners. And I remember in my early teens visiting my grandpa, and he had his health turn around, and he was out taking a morning walk. He would take the dog out for a walk for an hour every morning. And my dad and I go jogging by as we're training for our next marathon, and he's cheering us on as we pass him. And I just had this moment of thinking, this is what healthy food can make possible. And so throughout my life, I feel I've carried this vision of knowing that health isn't a source of something that comes out of luck. It's something that to a tremendous extent comes from the choices that we make. And I want to help as many people as possible to make the wisest choices they can. As I've gotten a little older, I've studied the medical literature and I've traveled the world. I've worked with leaders in over 65 countries. And what I've seen is that everybody eats. And I've seen that the American way of growing food and producing food is spreading around the globe. And with it, waistlines are expanding, hospitals are filling up, people are dying of diseases that were unheard of before. And so I want to sort of shout out to the world, please don't follow us. We Americans, have the highest rate of obesity, other than maybe Mexico now, of any people on the planet. We have epidemic rates of chronic illness. We've seen where our way of eating leads. So KFC, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, agrochemical companies, pesticides, all of this stuff is exporting from here around the globe. I want to say, look, folks, you may know better than us how to feed your population. And it's time for all of us to heed the warning signals. Too many people have died. Too many people are feeling like crap right now. It's time to change course.
That's awesome. I appreciate all of the wisdom in those statements. And the key is, I think we talk about, with our community, we talk about being your own health hero. And that is exactly what you're describing. Take your health in your own hands. And you've experienced in your own family how, your grandpa, when he changed, right? Your grandpa, when he changed his ways, it changed the whole paradigm. We talk about the American way. The American way is such now that, most of Europe will not accept our food. Right? I mean, there's countries all around the world who say, we don't want your food because of the way it's grown, because of the GMOs, because of what you're producing is really not good for our planet. It's amazing because, it wasn't very long ago we were leaders in the food industry, right? We were leaders and people understood that what we stood for was integrity and as well as quality. If you can speak to that, Ocean, what has happened to our food that so many countries in the world won't even accept it?
Well, we have today in the United States perfected the most nutritionally inferior food in the history of the world. We take Mother Nature's bounty and we strip it of vitamins and minerals and we turn it into chemicals and we process it in factories and we slap a bunch of packaging on it and we ship it around the world. And we have food that is saturated with hormones, antibiotics, pesticide residues, GMOs, and with chemicals with names we don't know how to pronounce, and of course with tons and tons of added sugar. The average American woman eats her own weight in high fructose corn syrup every 3 years. So we are assaulting our bodies with chemicals and products that they don't know how to deal with. And then we wonder why a third of our kids are expected to get diabetes in their lifetime, and 2/3 of our population is overweight or obese. And we wonder why we even think it's normal that half of our seniors over age 85 will die with Alzheimer's. we think it's normal that the average senior is taking 14 prescription drugs in any given year. And we don't realize this is an aberration. Your body was meant to thrive. You were meant to have a vitality and mental clarity and to love your life. Now, of course, we're all going to die. But the question is, how are we going to live? How fully and vibrantly and abundantly are we going to live? And if you eat the standard American diet, you will get the standard American diseases. You know, if you drive your car into a brick wall, the cause of death on your death certificate might say that it was crashing into a brick wall. But you know and I know that it was really bad driving. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, even Alzheimer's, these are symptoms in most cases of ways of living. And the good news is that if they're symptoms of ways of choices we're making, then we can also make different choices and get different results. And that's what I think is so exciting, because we can turn the tide and we can achieve tremendous results in the process.
And what you said is wonderful, because it's not just doom and gloom. It's the fact that you have a choice when you know what's going on. I think there's a growing number of people that really absolutely understand what you're saying, but we have to, I think that the key is that we have to simplify. I want people to understand when they're watching is that this is not some complicated formula. And the fact that you can make simple choices every day, small choices that can lead to huge results. And the amazing thing is, when I was in medical school, you know, Ocean, we would learn that if you have a genetic problem, you know, if your uncle, your dad, or mom had a problem, then you're basically, you know, you're going to have these issues, or you have a high predilection. Right. Now we know that you're really not your genes, that probably less than 10% of your destiny, of your wellness and health is really up to you, right? I mean, you talked about food and the environment. And now we actually are powerful. I see 29-year-olds with cancer now that we never saw before. I see younger and younger folks with autoimmune disease. I mean, it runs rampant.
Yeah.
And so now we have the power to say, listen, just because people in my family have had problems doesn't mean that I'm going to suffer the same fate. If you could speak to that, you know, epigenetics and what you can do with your environment. And we talked about food, but what about your physical environment? What you're doing, where you're living? And also the emotional stress that we have. All of it comes together to form this amazing cascade, right, of stuff that we talked about. So, you know, that we are not our genes. If you could speak to that, Ocean, what can we do besides just say, well, I'm already done for, might as well just eat cheeseburgers every day?
Sure. Well, a lot of people think, oh, I've eaten crap my whole life and it's too late. I can't, you know, the die is cast, you know. So I might as well enjoy myself and do what's easy. My own father-in-law has that attitude, you know. I mean, he's a beautiful guy, and he doesn't want to change his diet because he's like, you know what? I'm reaping the benefits of what I've sowed my entire life, so that's just what it's going to be. But the truth is that if you have eaten not the best, let's say, up to this point, then you actually have even more stake in making a change. Because as bad as things have gotten, that's how much better they can be when we make a different choice. When we look at the blue zones, the areas in the world where people live the longest and healthiest lives, which has been documented by Dan Buettner working for National Geographic, he studied these communities in depth, and they're all over the planet, but they all have certain factors in common. And he identified 4 essential pillars that we see in the blue zones, which is they eat a whole foods, predominantly plant-based diet. They eat, they have a lot of exercise. It's built into the fabric of their lives. They have strong emotional ties and bonds with family and loved ones and community. And they have some form of stress reduction, spiritual practice, religious orientation that gives their life a sense of peace and a sense of meaning beyond the day-to-day mundanity of life. And I think that those are the 4 same factors that Dr. Dean Ornish has implemented in the Ornish program, which is the first program to ever be approved by Medicare and the big insurance companies, because it's been proven to reverse heart disease and also to be effective in certain forms of cancer. And the Ornish program has essentially the same 4 pillars. He says, eat better, stress less, move more, and love more. And so we're seeing modern science and ancient wisdom and epidemiological studies all coming together to tell us the same basic principles apply. My focus, of course, is on food, but I always recognize, we don't just live to eat, we eat to live. We
Right.
want to have wonderful food that helps us to love our lives, that helps us to have vibrancy and vitality. The old joke is that, healthy eaters don't live longer. It just seems like it because their life drags on. And, that's not what any of us are after. I think the truth is that healthy food can give you more pleasure. In the long run, I say 31 flavors of vegetables gives you more pleasure than 31 flavors of ice cream.
Right, exactly.
And
you look like you're having fun though. Do you seem like you're having a good time all most of the time? Is that true?
oh, I love it. I love it. Because I'm lit up. I know what we're doing matters. And I mean, I'm also, I'll admit, I'm also frustrated, even horrified sometimes by the status quo, because we live in a society where it's considered normal to basically dig our own graves with our knives and forks. And, we have a government policy in place that often subsidizes the worst foods with taxpayer money, no less. And so we're subsidizing high fructose corn syrup, factory farmed animal products. Twinkies has 14 ingredients in it that are subsidized by the US taxpayer. Broccoli has none.
None.
Right? So, and I get kind of mad because at the end of the day, this is actually creating a marketplace distortion that is condemning the poorest people in our society to nutritional disaster. And, it's no accident that the most low-income communities have, with the highest rates of poverty, also have the highest rates of cancer, diabetes, obesity, Alzheimer's, and heart disease, and the other major chronic ailments of our times that are fueled by diet and lifestyle. So I think that food is one of the most critical social justice issues of our times.
Huge. I think, as you talked about, it's a symptom of a problem. And I think that the disparity, right, the inequality of food quality amongst people, the haves and the have-nots, is striking. But you are leading a revolution. Tell us about this, the food revolution, and what you want to do for everybody, that you don't have to, be in any category, any class to really qualify. Tell us about your food revolution. I think it really is a revolution because I talk to my patients and, they often are getting bombarded with so much information and it's negative. It's almost like you're on trial, meaning that the food industry, it's almost like as long as you give a reasonable doubt, it's fine. You can have a preponderance of evidence that shows that things that are happening are horrible, but all you have to do is get a reasonable doubt. But tell me how you are, embarking on this revolution to change all that.
Absolutely. So we are tomorrow hosting the Food Revolution Summit. We have more than 300,000 people coming together. I think it's probably the largest convergence of food revolutionaries in history, all coming together with a goal. We want healthy, ethical, and sustainable food for everyone. We want an end to toxic food and a toxic food culture, and we want to stand for the health and the vitality that we deserve. So we're bringing folks together from all over the world. It's a virtual summit. You can sign up at foodrevolutionsummit.org. Again, that's foodrevolutionsummit.org, and join in for free. My dad and colleague, John Robbins, and I are interviewing 24 of the top food experts on the planet. Every day there are 3 more interviews. You can join in, and then they're on 21-hour replay afterwards if you can't catch the live broadcast. And this is an incredible opportunity to learn, to grow, to converge, to connect, and to galvanize, mobilize for positive change on the planet. Big picture, I want to see nutrition taught in school. I want to see doctors learn about nutrition in medical school. I want to see antibiotics, the routine use of antibiotics banned from factory farms. I want to see, longer term, I want to see a flip in the regulatory system so that organic farmers have a smaller regulatory burden, and farmers that are using pesticides have to pay extra to show how they're using the pesticides. Because right now, farmers that are doing the right thing, that are pesticide free, actually have to pay extra for certification, which is kind of like being fined for wearing your seatbelt.
Right.
And it's part of the reason that organic food costs so much more. And if we could flip that, we could change the entire agricultural system. And I want to see an end to wasteful government subsidies of junk food and the so-called commodities crops. And if taxpayers are going to subsidize anything, I think it should be healthy food like vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds and the foods we all know we should be eating more of. So these are some of the sort of policy goals that I have. And that's what we're working for in Food Revolution Network. And we also want to help every individual to claim their own power, because you don't have to wait for Monsanto or McDonald's or Coca-Cola or your government to be able to make changes in your life. Every dollar you spend on food is a vote. Every bite you take is a vote. So you can vote for a world with more pesticides and poisons. You can vote for a world with more sickness and lethargy and suffering and death. Or you can vote for a world of health and vitality and vibrancy and beauty, a more clean world, a more resilient, beautiful world. And I think most of us at the end of the day want to stand for that kind of a change.
Absolutely. It's inspirational with the words you're using. And I love the fact that you are living your purpose. Very few people do that. And I mean, he could do anything he wanted to, I'll be honest with you, with those of you who are watching. And what he's doing is he wants to create a better world with one of the most powerful tools, which is your fork, right? He wants to give you the tools to be able to change the whole paradigm. So I think that what you've said is amazing. One of the most important messages that I think on any Facebook Live we've had is that you have the power, right? We talk about being your own health hero. You have the power with every dollar you spend on your food. It's not gonna come down to the legislator, your senator, or your congressman. It's gonna come down to you. In your grocery store, if you demand better food, they will find a way to get it to you because you are the consumer. So it's such an important message. But what Ocean's going to do is give you the tools to be able to make those choices. Nothing that we ever can offer will be everything you need, but this is a great starting point for so many of us who've never had any education. And when you have that power, when I tell my patients that you cannot do better unless you know better, right? And this is what you're offering. So thank you so much. It's the first time I've ever had an interview with John, but you're inspirational and you speak from your heart. So I appreciate that, and keep doing what you're doing every day. I really thank you, and hopefully we can work together and help this planet from the disease state that's in, at least from the food standpoint. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for joining us in Facebook Live. We'll see you very shortly, Ocean.
If everyone can see me, this is Mary Agnes, Dr. Nandi practitioner. I want to make sure that they're back on live. It looks like you're okay again, Dr. Nandi.
Awesome. Are we still on live?
I think we're still on live. Yes, we are.
We're still on live. Awesome. Well, again, sorry about that. So we will say goodbye now, and then please join Ocean tomorrow and learn about his wonderful techniques. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much.